Have you ever met a person who you instantly connected with on every level? Have you ever fallen head over heels for someone the minute you laid eyes on them? Has anyone ever made your hair stand up because your energies just fuse together and blow up like a chemical reaction? Do you believe in love at first sight? Wait till you hear the episode today. I am beyond excited and I cannot wait for you to hear. So today's session is based on an interview with a lovely girl called Ashley. Ashley's a very special girl who I was partners with during our quantum hypnosis course a few months ago. I'll say no more and let you listen. I hope you enjoy this wonderful interview with Ashley. Okay. So thank you so much, Ashley, for coming and speaking today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited.
So tell us about yourself.
So a little bit about me. I am a mother to two wonderful little children. Um, they can be mischievous, of course. I also have some animals. I have a husky, a Siberian husky, and a pretty fat cat. Um, Otherwise, like my life is pretty boring. I work a regular, 9 to 5 job. But I am very lucky with that job. I'm able to work from home.
Mhm.
So that's really nice and gives me a lot of flexibility and freedom, um, in the life aspect. So
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
amazing. And I met you on our course, our quantum hypnosis course with Monet Coombs, of course. That's how we
Yes.
crossed paths. How did you end up there?
Oh, that is a super funny story. Um, so before, gosh, I want to say I was kind of catapulted onto this path of the spiritual awakening and everything that came afterwards earlier this year. I think it was like the end of April 2023, beginning of May. It was literally like I think April 30th. I ended up going to a metaphysical fair in our local town, and I was begrudgingly dragged there with my friend. um, I had honestly thought of so many excuses to get out of it and not to go.
Yeah,
Um, but in the end, I was like, oh, I'll just go because, I should probably do the people thing every once in a while and not be a hermit.
yeah.
So I went to this metaphysical fair, and when we walked in the doors, there was a table right where you walked in because they had different people doing different types of readings, like psychic mediumship, tarot cards, Akashic record readings. And my two friends that I went with, they like beelined it for that table to sign up for readings. And I honestly hadn't brought like any money or anything with me because I was like, I'm just gonna walk around and see what there is. Um, so then they kind of looked at me and they're like, "Oh, you're not gonna sign up for a reading?" And I was like, "Well, that wasn't my intention for the day, but I mean, I guess I'll look." So I was looking at all of the people that they had available, and I kept getting drawn to this one specific lady who did Akashic record readings. And at the time, I was not familiar with that at all. So I was like, why am I being drawn to this lady? And I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to put it out of my mind and keep walking around.
Hmm.
And I came back to this table, I think like two more times, and was drawn to the same lady. And even after reading all of the other like biographies of the other people there. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go for it because it's obviously coming up for a reason.
Yeah.
So I went, took out some money. I paid for like a half an hour session. And when my time came up, I went and sat down at her table, and she kind of just looked at me and smiled. And she's like, "Oh, so what brings you to my table today?" And I was like, I don't know, lady. You tell me because I came back to the readers table like 3 times. I don't know. Like, I don't know about Akashic record readings. I don't know what this is about, but clearly something is like pushing me in your direction. So she, kind of went through what the Akashic records are, what a reading is, what it means. And she gave me some like insight into my relationships with some of my family, and then touched a little bit on my relationship with my fiance. Excuse me. And then she just kind of like stopped and looked at me, and like I felt like she was like staring through me. And I just kind of sat there with a goofy smile on my face, like, "Hi, what are you doing?" And then she got this like huge smile on her face, and she goes, "Oh, do you know that you're an ET soul?"
Wow.
And I was like, I still had that stupid smile on my face, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're crazy." Like, you're a little bonkers. And I was like, I have honestly never heard that said to me before, nor have I ever heard of anybody else like that being spoken to anybody else. So I'm like, nope, that's a definite first in my life. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And she went on to explain like that, kind of like the physics behind it a little bit, on how, like, yes, I'm in an earthly physical body, but my soul originated in a different, you know, star system or planet or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and then she went on to explain, she kind of explained it as like your soul as an iceberg.
Yeah.
And if you could, okay, she said, imagine like an iceberg upside down. So the tip of the iceberg like goes into your physical body, and then the rest, it's just too big
Yeah.
as a quote unquote ET soul to be put into the body. So that's why a lot of star seeds have a lot of chronic illnesses and ailments.
Mhm.
And that really like resonated with me. She's like, that's why like you're like different from other people. And then she went on to explain that um, because I haven't had a lot of earthly incarnations, that and my energy is so like bright and big, that's why I attract a lot of quote unquote like darkness, because they like
Mhm.
to feed off of my energy, and I don't know how to protect myself from it. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my God. I'm like, I am so mind blown because that makes so much sense because I have a lot of like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and all the hidden diseases that no one
Wow.
can see.
Yeah.
So at the time I was like, holy crap. Like my mind was just blown all the way open. um, and so then after we left, I went home, and because I am like a huge Google fiend, like
Mhm.
when I get something that I like don't know or I'm curious about, I just Google like everything and anything and just try to digest it all. So I got home and I Googled ET Soul, and funnily enough, ET Soul does not come back with a lot of good results in Google.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So then I was trying to go through like different like blog pages, different stuff. And then I came across the term starseed, which I had heard in the past, but I didn't like really pay any attention to it. Um, so I Googled that, and that's when I came across Monet's podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is what I'm looking for. So I listened to, I think I skipped honestly like the first 3 or 4 episodes. I think I jumped to the one where she goes like into her story of her quantum hypnosis experience, with her time or her previous lifetime as a lock bar on Lyra. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it just really stuck with me. And then I listened to like all of her like podcast episodes within a couple days.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, this is like, this resonates with me so much. Um, so then I went on to, well, I was hoping to get a reading with her.
Hmm.
Then I went onto her website and I saw that she wasn't taking on new clients and that she had other QHC grads. So I booked a session with Erin on there. Um, and then at the same time, like because I like scoured her website for everything that was on there because I just like
Yeah.
couldn't get enough information.
Yeah.
So I looked at her whole website and I saw that another QHC class was starting soon. And I was like, oh my God, I have to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So then I signed up and then I got an email back right away saying that the most current class coming up was full. So I'd have to wait for the next round. And I was like, oh, I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, that's fine. Like, I'll just get put on the wait list. Like, not a big deal just because I'm an impatient person. I
Yeah.
like instant gratification.
Me too. I really wanted to be included in the second round, and I even emailed her like twice to say, please accept me, because she had said that she's going to do a draw or something like that. And I was like, you don't
Oh,
understand. I feel like I need to do this now.
yeah, that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but bummer, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's okay. Like, I'll just get put on the wait list. So then I had my first hypnosis session with Erin, and it didn't go as planned because I'm sorry, on my end. Well, actually, I don't know if it was on my end or her end, but there was a lot of like technical difficulties. So, um, and I didn't really know what to expect either, because my brain is very much always in problem solving mode. So that could have been part of the issue as well. So we, kind of scrapped that session. That was our throwaway session. And then we scheduled another one, I think, for like a couple days later. Um, and then that one went successfully because I pretty much knew what to expect now. It was it wasn't as good as like our sessions in the QHC course, just
Yeah.
because I didn't know my clear senses, how I was going to receive the information. So
Hmm.
there was kind of like a blockage there. Um, but then after I came out of hypnosis, we kind of talked about what came up, and I looked at my phone and I got an email from from Monet's assistant saying that someone from the class had dropped out and they were going to be picking like someone else to fill their spot. And I was like, oh my God, this has to be me. So I put out this like huge, like this, I wrote this long paragraph about why I should be picked. And I had the funds to pay for it right away. So I was like, I can pay in full the day you accept me. I need to do this right now. Please, please, please take me.
Oh.
And they did. And
Oh.
they picked me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really lucky to get um, in the class that we were both in.
Yeah.
It
What a
just all
group,
like,
amazing group of people, girls.
yes. And like now looking back at everything and like all the connections that we've made together, like we were all, I 100% believe that we were all in that group for a reason.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, me too.
there's,
Definitely. By far.
mhm,
Yes. That's
yeah,
amazing. So that's a lovely story. And
yeah.
oh yes, my next question is, how did you meet your current fiance?
Oh, and that is another one of my favorite stories. It's probably gonna be one that like we're gonna tell like, grandkids and great grandkids, and it'll be like passed down for like forever. And now
Oh.
it'll be memorialized online, which is pretty cool. Um, so at when I met him, um, so at the time I was just like getting out of um part of my vernacular, but I was getting out of a relationship. Um, we had been split up for a while,
Yeah.
but this man just refused to like move out of my house. I could not get him out of my house, and he had two children. which he had already moved back to his parents' house in another town just south of us. But so his kids were living with his parents, and he just refused to move out of my house, and it was so annoying. Um, so I tried to like it was a weekend day, so I was trying to get out of the house so I wouldn't have to be around him because the man just aggravated me so, and
Yeah.
he would just trigger me, and it was just very toxic.
Hmm.
Um, so I took my kids because we were invited to one of my friends' children's birthday parties.
Hmm.
And normally I don't attend stuff like that because
Yeah.
the child was only like 2,
Hmm.
so I'm like, mm, not sure what they're not gonna remember this birthday party, you know. But I was like, ah, whatever. We're just gonna go and get out of the house and do something. So we go. She had it at a bowling alley. So we go to the bowling alley. The kids, there's other kids there that are on my kids' age. So they went and were bowling and having fun. They're kind of like, okay, bye, mom. Like, you're chopped liver. We're gonna go play. So, so I was like, okay, cool. Um, so while they were playing, I stepped outside with my friend, and we were just chatting. And all of a sudden, this like guy walks up, and it was like relatively later after the party had actually started. And he walks up with a present. And he had like these cool like Oakley shades on and like a leather jacket, and he just looked really, really good. And it was Danny. And I was just like awestruck.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the closest that I could ever get to like, or that I feel like love at first sight would be.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, so I mean, besides like looking at my kids, but I was like, oh my God, like who is that? And he was like talking to my friend, like I think he asked her like where to go put the present or something, or if it had started already, or and just like a side note, he was late to the birthday party, and he has been late to like literally everything since we've been together. He and it's not like, and it's only because he takes forever to get ready. He
Yeah.
takes longer than any female I've ever met. Like it literally takes him about 2.5 hours to get ready. It's ridiculous. So I that like synchronicity is really funny. Um, so yeah, so then my friend tells him like where to go put the presents, and he walks inside, and I turn to my friend and I was like, who is that? And she's like, oh, that's my kid's godfather. We live in his house. We live in the upper apartment. Oh, I knew they lived in the upper apartment.
Yeah.
She's like, he owns the house that we live in. And he's, the kid's godfather. And um, he was her fiance's best friend too.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, very cool. And I'm like, well, my next question is he single? And she's like, yep, he's single as a Pringle, and has been for a long time. And right there, just like past traumatic relationships coming forward, I'm like, oh God, red flag. He's defective.
Yeah.
something there's something wrong with him. Or just because of the way he was very well dressed,
Yeah.
very well put together. I was like, oh, or he doesn't play for my team. Dang it. So I asked her, I was like, well, why is he single? Just trying to get more information. And her response was, and I will never forget this because it is my favorite part of the story. She goes, oh, because he hasn't found Mrs. Right. And I turned to her, and I'm very like quick with like quippy responses.
Yeah.
And I was just messing around. But I turned to her and I was like, because I'm right here. And we both laughed. And I was like, well, if you ever talk to him or whatever, like see if I could get his number if he wants to talk sometime. And she's like, oh, okay, like, we'll see what happens. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we both go in, and the rest of the birthday party like continues. Then it was time to like eat the food and do the opening of presents and stuff. And now he claims that he would like stare at me,
Mhm.
and I was staring at him. Like I would turn around and like just like stare at him, and I'd be like, oh my God, Ashley, you need to stop. like you're being a creep, you know? And apparently he was doing the same thing, but I never caught him doing it. And he never caught me staring at him either, which was really
Yeah.
funny. So then, the little girl opens her presents and she opened Danny's first,
Mhm.
and we actually got her the same card, the
No
exact same
way.
card. Yes, we got her. It was like some Disney princess card where it like sings and like has music coming out of it. And I was like, oh my God, I already got her that card. I was like, dang it. Like I need to be more original next time, you know?
Yeah.
And and then we actually got her the same present too.
Are you
It
serious?
was I'm dead serious because I was like, I was I was like low key pissed
Yeah.
because I'm like, I mean, at least I in the present, I provided like the receipt in case, it was something that someone had already gotten for her or whatever.
Hmm.
Just 'cause I'm a control freak like that. But so when they opened mine, she looked at me and she's like, my friend was like, oh, thank you. And I was like, no worries. The receipt's in the card. Like,
Yeah.
you can take it back and get something else. But yeah, so that was really funny. And I think the most funniest thing about that story is that like because I had just talked to Danny about this I think a couple days ago, is that we didn't talk at all when we quote unquote met,
Hmm.
but he had the same feeling as I did, because then after the party he went upstairs and talked to our mutual friends to see like who I was and like what my deal was.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the birthday party was like at the beginning of September. And then he didn't message me until the beginning of October, October 6th of 2021 to be exact.
Hmm.
And when he first messaged me, at that time, I'd finally gotten dude out of my house. I made him move out.
Yeah.
And I had a kid free weekend, which hadn't happened in like 3+ years, something like
Wow.
that. So I had gone out with my friends, and I was a little inebriated when I got his message. And the way that I interpreted his message that night was very like cocky.
Hmm.
And I really remember just at the end of it, he was like, oh, so what do you think about that? And I remember reading it. And at the time, I like turned to my best friend and I was like, who does this guy think he is? Like, just messaging me like some stupid stuff and then asking me, like, well, what do you think about that? And I was like, whatever, I'm not responding to him. That's ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to talk to people that are like that. And
Hmm.
it was just my own interpretation
Yeah.
of his message. And that's why like I slightly dislike messaging,
Hmm.
because you can interpret what people say any kind of way.
Yeah.
um
Well,
yeah, so I waited until the next day, and then I reread it and I was like, oh, that's not cocky at all. That was just me
mhm.
being stupid. um so I messaged him back and we had started talking, and it turns out that we actually like had never met before, but we have so many mutual friends that it was just crazy that we had never met previously. One of his other best friends I've known since I was like 13 and was really like an older brother to me.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I forgot how that got brought up, but he's like, "Oh my God, you're that Ashley." He's like, "Yeah, Randy has talked about you, like for a long time. I didn't know that's who you were." And I was like, oh, like and then I'm like, oh, I know who you are too. Like it then like everything just clicked, and yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
Um then after we like talked, we had our first date and that was phenomenal. I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever laughed that much in my entire lifetime.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and then we actually got engaged 2 months later, after we met, and we got so much flack from people about that. Like, oh, you shouldn't jump into a relationship too fast. But it had felt like like I had known him for forever. Like everything about our personalities, like what we were looking for in a relationship. Our communication style was like exactly the same. So I was like, well, like, and why do you guys care how fast, we get
Yeah.
engaged or married? Like,
Yeah.
there's
It
nothing to do
felt
with
right.
you.
I know it,
Yeah.
and it felt right, like, and everything was aligned. So
Hmm.
I can see why, they would be worried about you too, though. But yeah,
Oh
it
yeah.
felt good.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And we didn't plan on like, getting engaged and then like a month later like going and getting married.
Yeah.
We were just like, it'll be a long engagement because, well, frankly, at least in the United States, everything is crazy, crazy expensive.
Yeah.
So we knew it was going to be a long engagement anyways.
Hmm.
Um, and it like his family loved me too right off the bat, which I've never had that in a relationship before, where the parents have liked me. They've always
Oh,
hated me,
oh,
and I never like understood why, because I'm like, man, I'm just like, a nice person. I try to do the what I can and the right thing for everybody, and y'all are
yeah.
just jerks.
Oh. Well, it wasn't obviously supposed to be.
Exactly, exactly. Like, I think my ex-husband's mom called me like the spawn of Satan or something. And
How
I was
dare
like,
she?
I know she was rude. But in her defense a little bit, she's like a paranoid schizophrenic. So so there's some mental issues there. So I didn't take it too personally, but I was like, I feel like that's very harsh.
Yeah, slightly like.
Yeah. And she doesn't even like live around here, and she never really like talked to me or anything. So I was like, mm,
Mm,
okay, well, you can go ahead and think that that's okay. You're
yeah.
entitled to your own opinion.
And so when did Danny start to appear in your hypnosis sessions?
Yeah, so he actually like appeared in um my first session with the class. So not the one that I had previous to taking the class. It was in my first one, in our first like partner swap.
Hmm.
Um, it was in like the higher self portion.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to like, because I
Was
remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
was it our one? The one that I did, or was it one
Mm,
before that? No, no, before
it was
that.
the Yeah, before that. um, I remember. I think one of my questions was, "Who are my who are my guides?" It had something to do with guides. I don't remember
Yeah.
100%. Um, but in that portion, and I remember this so vividly, I was like in like a liminal space almost. It was like black, just black all around me. And I could see like little dots everywhere, like little orbs of light. And then like as like because I was trying to like turn like my head to get like a peripheral vision and like kind of look all around me.
Yeah.
Um, and then all of a sudden I was like zoomed in to this like really, really, really bright white light. And I was like, oh my, like it was, I mean, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, holy shit. Like it almost gave me a headache.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like this is, a light being, because at the time that in my brain, like that's what it interpreted as, because it's light and it's something. And all I could see was this giant, bright white orb of light. Um, and then I think in the course of like the questioning, it kind of veered off some way, but then we got brought back to this white light, and then it was like zooming in even more.
Hmm.
And then I was like, oh, okay, just kidding. It's not a light being. Like I can see someone, but they're just surrounded by this light. Um, and then like as I kept focusing more and more and more, I kept like more details were making themselves clearer. So then I could see like his, and at the time I wasn't 100% sure what I was seeing because I was still in the I'm making this shit up.
Yeah.
um, but what I saw was like a lion person, surrounded by like it wasn't just light, it was like a white flame behind
Hmm.
him. And I think maybe that was why it was hard for me to distinguish like if it was a light being or him, because it was like moving, like a flame moves.
Yeah.
And it was really, really just like I didn't know what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think um, the person who was facilitating it had asked, no, maybe not. Just trying to remember. Oh, she asked like what his purpose is, because he's one of my guides as well. And now that I think back on it, I think like him, his physical form on Earth is not so much like a guide, but I think like his parallel in his higher self is one of my guides. I think because we're like one and the same.
Yeah.
Um, but then she asked me like what his purpose is in regards to being my guide and all that stuff. And I remember coming up, or like the words that popped into my head was healer, teacher, and mentor. And those are just like snap in my brain, like didn't even have to think about it.
Hmm.
Or was it protector? Oh my God, now I can't even remember.
Yeah.
I think it was, I think one of them might have been protector. Because I could also see him like in his lion, like physical form, kind of. And it looked like he was in like a tactical gear, almost like, if you were like in the like military, or like at least in the United States, it's like we call them the SWAT team. So they're like the people that come in with all the guns and stuff when like shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw him in that form. Um, and like I could see like the details of his like lion fur. His like face was like a beige tan color, and then it like faded out to white, which I've never seen that on a lion before. It's kind of like the opposite, I think. I don't even know if I've seen it like in
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah.
So it's like hard for my brain to interpret that. Yeah, that was the first time he showed up, and I wasn't 100% convinced that I wasn't making it up,
Yeah.
because this is like a constant like thing that we talk about how like just our relationship has formed and how it's been this whole time. Because he truly is like my best friend, and I know that sounds super cliche and well, vomit, but
But it's true, and that's
it
how you
is.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much so. And, so I think we had been talking about it the night before that hypnosis session. So I think at like when it all came up and afterwards, I was like, I just made that shit up because we were just talking about it, like, of course he's gonna come up.
Mhm.
But yeah, then after our session together, and then I did some sessions with him, it just like blew everything wide open, because I did not let him listen to my first session or our session together,
Mhm.
because I kind of wanted to conduct a little experiment of my own. um, so yeah, he didn't listen to any of it, and then when I so we did a couple sessions together. The first, I think like two or three weren't successful, and
Mhm.
then he finally connected, and it was like he was explaining things that he didn't know about that I had brought up in my sessions. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So yeah, it was awesome.
Amazing. So, and when did the actual like realization come to you that you're twin flames?
Yeah. So it actually came in his first successful session.
Yeah.
Excuse me, because he was shown a memory, and it was really like only a piece of the memory. But he was shown that like he was a lion person, a lyran. And so like right then and there, I was like, I knew it. I knew it. But I didn't say anything. I like stayed calm, although like my heart was like beating out of
Oh,
my chest. And then we got to the higher self portion, and they weren't really like, they didn't have a lot of information to, well, I don't say not to give, but they didn't want to give him too much information, um, because they said that he needed to figure some things out for himself,
mhm.
like about our connection and our relationship, because apparently it was very important, that he figure it out. Um, and then I think they told him that he needs to listen to my sessions. And then he said that there was three important things that he needs to know from my first session. Um, and that was the healer, mentor, and teacher or protector, whatever those three things were. And when he said those three things from my first session, I was like, oh my God, I knew it. Like it was just a crazy like synchronicity. And I shared the episode. Oh no, that was the second one that I recorded. But either way, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, so then when they kind of like confirmed the stuff that had been brought forth during my sessions, I was just like, oh my God, I knew it. Like I knew it. And then when I brought him back out of hypnosis, he was, I asked him like how he felt, like what, his impressions were, and kind of just like a mini debrief session immediately after. And he was like, yeah, that was weird. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. So he's like, I talked to my higher self. He's like, which came through as a male. He's like, but then he's like, there was a female there, and they were like right next to each other, like they were almost working in tandem to like give him information. And he's
Mhm.
like, is your higher self a female? And I was like, as far as I've been shown, yeah. And then he went to describe what she looked like, and that's exactly what I had seen too, like when like I connected with my higher self.
Mm.
But his higher self didn't connect with him the way that mine did. um Mine felt like it would like slip in to my
Yeah,
body and then slide out.
like a
And
channeling thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And they were talking to him, and then he would like translate it back, because he's a way bigger control freak than I was. So I didn't
Mhm.
even attempt to be like, hey, you want to them use your vocal cords, because I knew that just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Amazing.
it was crazy and awesome.
Oh, that's a lovely story. Amazing. It really is. It
Hmm.
must have been so reassuring. Like I can imagine both of you feeling like just overwhelmed.
Yeah, it was, and him more so than me. Because not that I don't think you can be prepared for like that kind
No.
of like confirmation, or you can
Yeah.
have that thought, but then getting the confirmation is just out of this world. But for him, who like doesn't have like the woo woo background that we now have,
Yeah.
it was very, very like overwhelming for him, and it took him quite a long time to like, I don't want to say believe, but like, I guess
Open
believe is,
himself up.
yeah, yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it, because he's very logical.
Hmm.
Um, and he explains and debunks things away, like, oh, I must have saw that in a movie,
Yeah.
at some point in my life, and I'm just regurgitating it back up. But there was some things that he's like, I don't know where it came from. I've never seen anything like it,
Yeah.
and this is just crazy. And so he's like a converted soul.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that story. It's amazing.
it is. It is.
And how is he now with the whole scenario? Does he kind of normalized it?
Yeah, he has. And I think like, and I guess if anybody else would kind of go through, this kind of scenario, it would be different, because it's really, based on like your personality types and communication styles. Um, And with us, um, the way that we process like hard and heavy or deep stuff is we joke about it
Yeah.
to like try to normalize it and whatever. And in one of the past memories that he was shown, he got stabbed, uh, and it wasn't fatal right away, but it ended up being fatal. And he got stabbed because of me, because in a past lifetime I was very reckless. It was actually either that lifetime in Egypt that I saw.
Oh, really?
um, yeah, yeah, he was shown like his portion of it, and in every lifetime he has been like my protector,
Hmm.
and I was being reckless, and I got him stabbed
Hmm.
essentially. Um, and that was I remember when he like experienced it, he like physically like jumped and like startled himself because he wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So like with that, I don't know, like we just joke about it.
Yeah.
And it's probably not like the healthiest way, but like I call him Stabby now for every now and then.
Oh, I'm
Um,
glad you can laugh about it because I can imagine in the beginning it was very impactful, but for both of you,
yeah,
and the only medicine really is to laugh things off sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all we can. I mean, I know it might not be healthy, but like that's like I said, that's the best way that it works for us
Yeah.
because like because of past like how we were raised and past relationships,
Hmm.
um opening up to those like real deep and raw emotions of something isn't our first go-to.
Yeah.
So we just resort to like dark humor to get through it, and I think that's just been the best way that you know in like going helping him through
Mm.
integrating what he's seen and bringing it to a normalized like everyday thing. That's what we've done is just like joke about it, or if I do something impulsive, like, oh, I'm gonna go, I don't know, get my hair dyed pink or something. He's gonna be he's like, well, just make sure I don't get stabbed. I'm like, okay, I'll do my best, can't promise anything.
Oh, I love that. I love that you can laugh about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, yeah, it's now like a running joke that I got him stabbed. And I mean, and when that stuff first came to light, like I felt really bad too. Like even though it's not obviously something I did in this lifetime,
Hmm.
I still feel and that's something else I wanted to bring up too. In our session, that grief when I was crying and
Yeah.
just like sobbing, that's where that came from. Because then I asked our higher selves in that session, with that I did on Danny where he got stabbed. I was like, is that what this was from in my session? Um, and they said yes, because um, he was like, you know, murdered because of me, and
Hmm.
we were supposed to like run away together,
Yeah.
and he
Wow.
was supposed to come get me, and he never came. And then I found out what happened, and that's where that like grief came from.
I remember you saying that like it was grief that you'd never even felt before, and you don't know what you're
Hmm.
going to do now. So that
Hmm.
all fits in perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just crazy. And then I had asked them too, like, I felt the feeling, but I wasn't seeing anything, or like I didn't know why,
Yeah.
this feeling had come up, and they hadn't shown it to me because he was supposed to see his part first. Um, but I needed to like feel the feeling beforehand so I could like help him through that part of his memory,
Wow.
like the emotional part. And I was like, oh, you turds, that was terrible. Why would you do that to me?
Wow, that is pretty heavy, hey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like after putting all of the pieces of all of the sessions together, and we still have more to put together, um, but it's going to take some time according to our higher selves and guides, and it's like
Yeah.
a big puzzle.
Well, I'm eager to hear how it goes, and I'm sure anybody listening here would love to hear too. Maybe tell us about where we can hear you and where your podcast is.
Yeah, so I do have my podcast. It's called the Starseed Journey Podcast. Um, and I am only currently on Spotify and Amazon Music right now. Yeah, I have a lot of other like client sessions that I would like to share on there. Um, but right now, I just really wanted to I felt it was really important to get like our story out there because it's so unique
Hmm.
and so cool. I mean, maybe that's just my own biased opinion,
No,
but
no, I 100% agree with you. It's an amazing story.
yeah, for sure. And I actually just released an episode on Tuesday the 10th. I did an interview with Danny all about, I mean, it, it was supposed to be an interview on like how, he went from skeptic to believer, because he was a hardcore skeptic, like
Yeah.
none of this stuff was real. um, but we also kind of took a turn right in the beginning, where we talk a lot about like our relationship and how it came to be, and just like background stuff about that. And then we kind of lead up to like um, my spiritual awakening, like how he felt about that, and then his journey of going through hypnosis and awakening too. It was actually so long I had to break it up into two different sessions
Yeah.
or two different episodes.
Yeah. Leaving a cliffhanger in between, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know how good of a cliffhanger it was because it was so hard to pick like where do I cut it off,
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna play the whole 2 hours. And I was like, no, that's no one wants to listen to that for 2 hours.
You'd be surprised. If it's a good story, I'm sure people would love to hear it all in one go.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But then I was like, oh yeah, but then I have a second episode that I don't have to do anything for next week. So
Yeah.
because I got a lot going on next week. Because I have a metaphysical fair that I'm attending, and doing galactic heritage readings for. I'm also doing a lecture about
Mhm.
twin flames at
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, at this metaphysical fair. Then I have like my own booth there. So prepping for that.
Where
And
is this
then
medical metaphysical fair, just in case anybody who's listening is around your area?
oh yeah, awesome. So it's actually in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Hmm.
If anybody is around the area, it's at the expo, the fair expo grounds
Yeah.
in
How often
Manitowoc.
does that happen, that expo?
I believe it's twice a year, once in the spring at the end of April or May, and
Hmm.
then again in, I want to say the third week of October.
Okay.
And they might be adding a third one kind of in summer, but
Hmm.
that's still in the works yet. And it's through, the coordinator is Be Well Naturally now. It's a little shop in the north of the state of Wisconsin in the United States.
And if anybody wants to get in contact with you, where can they contact
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, and bear with me, I have to look up my handle because I always forget it.
you?
At inner underscore site, SIG is in George, HT is in Tom, underscore LLC. That's on Instagram. Otherwise, you can check out my website. It is www.inner-site-llc.com. And I have all my contact information on there, all
And you
my services that I offer. Mhm.
you can send them to me as well, and I'll put them in the show notes. So just in
Oh,
case
perfect.
people
Yeah.
can copy and paste
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I'll do that because it's a lot to type out or to say.
it. Oh, thank you so much, Ashley, for your story. It really has been so riveting and amazing to listen to.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I was so excited to share it and talk with you today.
Yeah, it's a lovely story. It really is. And I can imagine a lot of people would love to discover their twin flames.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple people, like reach out and ask about it because um, there's not, I don't want to say there's not a lot, but there's a common like misconception between the terms of twin flames and soulmates.
Hmm.
Um, and I have an upcoming episode on my podcast that goes into like what are twin flames, what are soulmates, and soul contracts, and how to differentiate them. Um, yeah, like I didn't know the difference until my first hypnosis session in our group. So I
Yeah.
thought that would be a good thing to discuss. So I think that's coming out in like 2 weeks, maybe, or
Cool.
a week and a half from today. Mm, I think it might be for the 31st, but I actually might push it out because I was going to do a Halloween episode.
Oh, amazing. It would be rude not to, in fairness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it's just coming up at some point. I just don't know when the exact release date is going to be, but yeah, and like on my podcast, I'm going to be sharing like client sessions that I do, but I also talk about like other spirituality and like, topics that I wish I had known when I first started out,
Yeah.
because I needed like a 101 course, like a
Yeah.
crash course. So
Yeah,
I'm like, I
really
think other
useful.
people need that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
really useful. Really, really useful.
Yeah,
So I hope you have a lovely weekend. Today's Thursday, yeah. And thank you so
yeah.
much again for taking the time to speak today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I hope you have a wonderful weekend as
You
well.
too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ashley just as much as I did. What a journey and an amazing story. It really is. Just had my heart beaming, absolutely beaming throughout the whole interview. So yeah, definitely tune into her episode regarding soulmates and twin flames. I imagine that would be very interesting to discover. And if you'd like to discover your twin flame or any soulmates that you might have in your life, get in contact with either me or Ashley. And I'll put both of our details in the show notes, of course. And yes, I wish you a wonderful week and take care. Cheerio, lots of love.